Yeah, yeah. Well, this is a rolling intro here, but yeah, we were just talking about some difficult client calls and how to handle those and how to approach those. And it's working in the consulting game and digital marketing game, it's never I don't know, keeps you on your toes there, to say the least.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this before. We don't have to get into it too much, but I would say there's a big significant part of our job in the agency world or even as a consultant. It's the politics of life and relationships that we're kind of managing, sometimes in some cases more than the actual campaigns themselves, time and energy spent, um, which is pretty wild. I think that can be shocking for someone that's maybe new in the game, or maybe they're a brand new consultant on their own, and how much that really comes into play. Because I know when I started off in SEO, just heads down doing production work, I get pulled into maybe a big quarterly call, or they fly you out to go do a report and pitch a client, and then things go like sideways, and you're like, "Whoa, what is happening?" When you first experience, you're like, "This is weird. I thought we were just doing SEO, man." But
What I guess like question for you, like if you I don't know, maybe let's say like you're gonna approach a call, it's gonna be like a little tougher. Um for whatever reason, there was a fire, or maybe somebody's a little bit more difficult to kind of work with. I don't know. Like, how do you approach those calls? Because I feel like myself, dude. I grew up playing basketball, and I feel like AAU basketball really shaped my perspective. Where it was really like for lack of a better term, like you kind of had to have like a killer's mentality and like never back down, and really like aggressive. You're not going to do wrong by me, and I'm going to stay in my ground here. And I feel like that does not fly on, you know, on like consulting calls. If that kind of makes sense, like it's almost like that competitive nature. Like you really have to like tamp that down and be like, I don't know, calm for like lack of a better word. Like, how do you think about those calls? Or what, do you like remind yourself
yeah,
going into a call? Like, how do
so
you?
so it's a little interesting because I think the basketball analogy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like I get that kind of killer mentality because you can see the whole field or the whole court, and you see what's in front of you, and that's tangible. You have all the possible inputs to make the decision of how you're going to approach things, and it's typically on the aggressive manner. I think going into a call, um, especially if it's not in person, but most of the time now it's not, and hopefully video is on. You don't see
That's got to be
everything.
mandatory. Video needs to be
Yeah,
on there.
video for sure
Side
has to
note.
be on. Like, do personality, like you pick up on cues, for sure. But back to my point is like a consulting call, a marketing call, a digital marketing call. You don't have all the data as far as like the context of everybody in the room. There could be something I call it like a black swan. I didn't coin that. It was from the book Never Split the Difference, where it's like there's a truth behind the truth that's motivating or changing the experience behind you. So always try to keep in mind that there's going to be some black swans floating around. Um, and I think that's really tough if you do come in an aggressive state, kind of on the offense. You can run right into a booby trap and not even know that it's there. And then it kind of
Yeah.
looks really bad on yourself. So you have to kind of go in knowing there's a lot of unknowns, keeping your situational awareness around you, and being flexible, and also taking it not personally. Because at the end of the day, too, um, you know, uh, we're not saving lives here. We're typically selling
Yeah.
products or services. I mean, sure, some of them actually do save lives, depending on the brands that you work with. But you also have to have that reality as well. So that's kind of how I approach it, just kind of knowing that there's a lot of unknowns, being open, having a good idea of what I want to say or what I want to convey, but knowing to get there, I might have to go a lot of different directions before I finally get to that point across.
Yep.
Just too many unknowns, man, to know that you
And I
think you
feel
know it
like
all.
the reason I ask it is, I would assume the vast majority of people who do listen to this podcast are in the consulting agency space there, where it just lends itself to having tough conversations. like you're going to have some months where performance isn't good, or you might have messed something up. And it's always easy to kind of like, you know, put blame on that agency or that vendor. So like a lot of times when we sit in as consultants there and media partners, like we can take some blame and you can have some tougher calls. I would say that's, you know, more of a rarity, but I think that's a good perspective to have. And I think one thing to kind of, I don't know, keep top of mind there is like, you're not really going to win if you like get super combative with somebody, even if you're in the right. Like there's no positive outcomes. So I don't know. I think like trying to, as best you can, like to your point, not take it personal, but really realize that like, I don't know, maybe that person on the other end is just going through something in their life and they're just giving their negative energy towards you, and it has nothing to do with you or, you know, your quality of work or whatever. And being combative in response is only going to make the situation worse and not better. And at the end of the day, you know, you want to continue to run your business and, you know, service your clients. So it's honestly just not really worth, I don't know, getting like a little spicy back or aggressive back. It just,
there's no reason to get emotional.
No.
There's no reason to bring emotions and
it's
getting
not easy,
emotional
though.
about it. No, it's hard to tamp it down. You know, even like during the call, sure, tampering your emotions. Maybe afterwards you have a little bit of a vent session to kind of let some of that go or push through, which I think can be somewhat healthy, but to a certain extent, because if you continue to be basically negative after the fact and you have other team members around you that are taking that as example, it turns into like a tornado of just like negative energy as far as the way you're talking about your clients or that individual person, etc. That it's like, okay, hold on a second. It really wasn't that big of a deal. It kind of gets them kind of all amped up again, you know, and there's just no need to do that. So you have to be very careful on how you approach it, especially if you're a manager, how you approach it with your subordinates. That like, yeah, man, that was a weird call, you know, but don't get too much into the weeds of like talking shit, because they're going to start talking shit and it's just going to be a negative experience where really wasn't that big of a deal at the end of the day.
And then it creates a culture of like kind of, that's how we, you know, always, I don't know. I think that could like really snowball on itself there.
Yeah. Because you got to give the client the benefit of the doubt, or the person, you know, because you just don't know all the information. But yeah, it creates like a toxic work environment in that sense where, like, I don't know, nobody likes being on client calls, or the client itself. It's like, nah, man, you can't have that, especially if you got management underneath you and you got to lead by example in that situation. You know,
what's
a little
also
ranting is fine, but
the one saying of like, you know, have strong beliefs but loosely held, you know, something along those lines, where like you kind of have convictions but like you're willing to open your mind and be, you know, open-minded there. I think like that kind of applies to maybe a tougher call or just a client in general, where you know, maybe over time you just realize, oh, like this is what was actually going on, and I always thought they just hated me, or I always thought they were just a terrible person. And then you realize over time, like, no, it was actually this, or, you know, you had an eye-opening conversation. Whatever the case may be, having like a little perspective shift, then it's like, wow, I just had a couple weeks there where every time I had that call or that interaction, it was kind of like anxiety ridden and like a little bit more stressful, or like we talk shit after the call, to your point there, like when it just didn't ever have to go to that point, you know?
Yeah.
And then that could bleed into like your personal life and relationships outside of work, where it's like, you know, that person's not like super positive to be around. Like I just listened to a podcast yesterday. I don't know if you ever heard of him, Steve Weatherford. He was a punter in the NFL, won a Super Bowl with the Giants on that team. And now he does like a lot of like fitness and YouTube content and stuff like that. And he mentioned that of like, you know, he used to go through some things where when he would come home, you know, his wife like wasn't even excited to see him, because she's like, I don't know if this is going to be like the negative person that's coming home, and kind of have to be on eggshells for a little bit to see if like he's going to be super pissed about certain things. So I think bringing that perspective outside of work is really positive to have, of like, just not worth it. You know, we're not doing rocket science, you know, we're not doing medical surgeries here.
That's a really good point, because
take with a grain of salt there.
That's a really good point, because I do have to be mindful of even when I'm like talking to my wife, like catching up on this, like how much do I really want to give her all the details about a specific client thing, etc.
Exactly.
Where it might feel good at the time to kind of get that off your chest, but it's like, it's not really doing her any good, like to hear it, especially if it's negative, you
Yeah.
know? So you got, and you control that, right? You're the one that's controlling that person's day potentially too. So it's a really interesting observation. That's just to be mindful about that.
Also, too, the one last thing that I'll say, and then I know we have a couple other topics to get into here, but I think like, as you kind of age and get older and have experiences, like your perspective is massively going to shift, and some things that you might have believed were true for a long time, you then realize might not be. I think a lot of people experience that over the, past couple of years here. And, it's not worth digging in because, at the end of the day, your perspective might be off there. So you could have a perspective on a call of like, hey, this person has bad intentions or this isn't going well, when you could be like totally wrong in that judgment there. So I don't know. I think keeping an even keel perspective there and trying to keep your calm, and at the end of the day, realize you're just trying to serve as a client here. And, that's pretty much it. I think that's somewhat helpful.
I think over time, like I've learned to better recognize what ego is and how to control your ego, and try not to have it influence your life, because even on like client calls or client situations, even if it's like in a positive sense, like, oh, I think I need to go jump in because I can solve this, but it's like, well, hold a second. How do you have all the answers to the key here? Why do you the one? Maybe it's the expert, the actual production expert should be talking instead of you because they know. But it's like, oh, you feel like you need to put yourself forward. And it's in good intention, but it's like, hold on a second, take a step back and realize that that's your ego talking to you, even if it's like I said, in a good intentions. You gotta be mindful of that.
100%. I don't know. Hopefully that was helpful for people who are doing consulting or agency work. Like,
I know I would love to hear that when I was, maybe 1, 2 years in, 3 years in, and you get these kind of client calls and you're having anxiety going into them. You're not sure how to speak to it. Your heart rate goes up, etc. I mean, I still have my heart rate go up no matter what. Like during a spicy call, it's like it's going to start pumping because it's a natural reaction, but not to freak out. It's like, hold on a second. Okay, exactly. Been here, done that. Let's move forward.
Yeah,
and go from there. I guess talking about moving forward, let's hit up on a couple topics. Let's move on.
Yeah, I did want to mention Perplexity. They announced this week, so we're recording this. It's Friday, November 15th. Perplexity just announced that they're launching an ad-supported platform. It's going live this week, or they're going to start testing sponsored posts. They announced this a couple months ago on their Q4 roadmap, and it kind of came to fruition. So let me just show the screen share, and I will say, like, there's not a ton of details that they released because this is going to be released in kind of a beta format where only a couple large brands and agencies get access to this. So it's not like everybody can go ahead and take advantage of this just yet here. But they did release this blog on the 12th
font type
of November here. Yeah, font is pretty interesting. I actually thought this graphic was pretty interesting as well. I wonder if they used an AI tool to create it. It's kind of like a little, I don't know, looks like a little futuristic and something's going on in space here. But they essentially just released that they were going to support the ad platform, or they're going to support their business with an ad-based platform. Now, there will still be a subscription component to their business, but they essentially said, like, hey, in order for us to compensate publishers and for us to run a business, we got to make money. And ads is a great way to do that without saying that, essentially. And they've released what it would look like. So in your native search experience in Perplexity, there are these other related links that I'm sure if you've used the tool, you've seen at this point. And this is an example up top of what it would look like. So it would actually be labeled sponsored. Now, they don't give you a ton of details as to how this functionality actually works. Like, they don't say, hey, you're going to be able to buy keywords in here. They just essentially stated that there is this functionality now of sponsored posts and that these sponsored posts will be paid. But if I were to then click in and see what this dropdown provided, that would actually still be generated by their AI. So it's not like the advertiser can then control the content that appears underneath of it. I think that the advertiser is just kind of going to be able to kind of buy this location with this sponsor link. And again, I don't know if this is going to be keyword based. And I believe it's going to be an outbound link. But they didn't say if there was going to be any ability to like actually purchase keywords or how it's actually going to work. They did say that they were going to partner with these some of these brand agencies, including Indeed, Whole Foods, Universal McCann, PMG, and a few
people
others.
That have plenty of budget to waste.
Yeah, people have plenty of budget here for sure. Pretty short overall post that they made. It's pretty straight to the point here, and they basically just said, like we're testing this as a new revenue source because we need to, run a profitable business here. So, yeah, I'm interested to see how this all rolls out. They did say up top, while brands are keen on understanding how their companies appear in AI engines like ours, we will avoid duplicating the SEO industry where people are implementing arbitrary tactics to improve their rankings at the expense of user utility. So essentially, like they kind of called out that, they're going to try and have a different approach to search compared to paid search and SEO as it's traditionally been done by Google and Bing there. So big announcement from the Perplexity team. I'm sure other LLMs are going to potentially test this out here as well. We've been talking about it for some time now that these LLMs are going to adapt or are going to adopt some type of paid platform. Just makes a ton of sense given how profitable Google's search business has been. So I don't know. Curious if you have any thoughts there, but nonetheless, first LLM that announced this, so pretty big news then.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if they could actually, these platforms, LLMs, like we have ads, we can actually drive conversions. I'm all about it. Like, the monopoly that Google has and Meta has. When we go to clients for options, I would love to have a toolbox more than just one or two search engines to do ads. And we'll see how, like you said, we're not sure if it's search intent that is triggering the ads or what the ads are going to do. These could be purely like branding ads, too. So we'll have to see. But it is cool that they are pushing this out. I'm sure ChatGPT will roll out something soon on their side as well. If they're pulling this, possibly. I can imagine that.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be a bit more sponsored for the time being, just because I think that's a little bit more, I don't know, privacy centric. Like you can kind of brand that as a bit more privacy focused of like, hey, it's just kind of like more like branding. It's not going to get super into the weeds
right.
of, keywords and ad targeting. It's just more for like brands to kind of like have a sponsored post, and that's about it based off of a topic and just kind of keep it there. So I don't know. We will see how that rolls out. Also, did you see ChatGPT's search tool? I think we talked about it last time, but if you go to chat.com, you actually can go directly to their search functionality now. And interesting story, I follow HubSpot's founder, Darmesh. I've heard a couple interviews of his over the year. Such a cool guy. And, HubSpot is a massive business. The dude is a multi-billionaire. And he's like constantly building different products online. He released like a whole like AI agent that he built himself. And he's a really cool guy where he's, older, but he's still constantly learning and testing. And he's a billionaire where he like doesn't have to do this. He has a whole portfolio of domains. He bought chat.com. I forget when, but probably like a little over a year ago, right at the start of OpenAI. And like when these LLMs were coming out, he sold it to OpenAI for like 15 million bucks, I think.
Wow.
He tweeted that out there. So if you go to chat.com, shout out Darmesh for making a play there.
So does that just redirect then?
It just goes directly to like their search functionality. Let me see if I can pull this up because I literally just thought of it as you were.
So it redirects to chatgpt.com.
It just redirects there?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what type of redirect it is.
Let me see if I can find this tweet just to see. But yeah, I mean, he built, so Darmesh, great follow on Twitter too. Agent.ai is a tool that he built, which is it does a bunch of different agent optimizations there. Let me see. Okay, so yeah, when Sam tweeted out chat.com, he said, breaking news, he could acquire a $15+ million domain, chat.com revealed, and exactly who you think. For those of you who've been following me for a while, you may recall I announced earlier this year that I acquired the domain chat.com for 8-figure sum, which was later reported as being 15.5 million. So he sold it to him, but he said for $15+ million. So who knows? It could have been like way more because he bought it for 15.5. So I would assume he sold it for significantly more than that. But yeah, it was kind of cool story of how that came to be.
That's really interesting. I looked up the redirect code. It's a 307, which is a temporary redirect, which is interesting. I mean, it still gets the job done from a browser perspective, but it's not a 301. So you're not passing like any authority across, which is interesting. I don't know why.
But you know what this reminds me of?
Unless they launched something on it.
Or like this, I don't know. I think the one thing that we talked about was before just the general quality of search GPT there, of like ChatGPT's search was not great. At least in my experience of testing it, it was pretty poor with the results. But you got to think like, who is literally going to type in chat.com and then go there and then start their searches? You know, like we spoke about this before. Google just has such an advantage of being able to just search immediately in that browser and then get results right away.
The
as
only
crazy
thing
as that sounds, I think that one step is going to cause friction. And I don't know, maybe it won't for some more like tech focused people like us here who kind of know about these things. So your average day person is not going to chat.com, in my opinion.
Okay, so here's what I think. Maybe they're doing something with it. They haven't fully developed it yet. I'm just going on a limb here. Because it's a temporary redirect, they're not permanently redirecting it. Could just be a mistake. No real intention. But let's just say, if there is intention to maybe actually develop something on chat.com, it would make sense to do a temporary redirect. So you get a temporary redirect in play, and in the background, they're going to build out chat.com, and it's going to be their own AI-powered search engine. So they're going to take the search engine function that they have within ChatGPT, they'll break it off. You can still access it on ChatGPT, but they're going to break it off to chat.com, and they're going to have like a Google-like experience with their search engine on chat.com. They're going to run Super Bowl ads to get the word out there that go to chat.com, you know, and that's where they start their search engine, AI search engine business. Maybe that's why.
I could totally see that.
Because that could change user perspective. You know, hey, instead of Googling, go to chat.com. You know, instead of going to Bing, because no one goes to Bing, go to chat.com. You know, a super simple marketing campaign that just, why not try? You know,
they got the money.
They have the money to give it a shot.
Yeah, they got the investing to do it.
I don't know. I could see a total Super Bowl ad that's buzzed around, or the whole sponsorship of the Super Bowl is chat.com, and you get people to use it, download the app. It's just the search engine side of things. It's not the total, ChatGPT experience, which is very different. They did develop it. They get ads on there, and they have a competitor in there. I bet they could come in and get at least market share of what Bing is, you know, with the right marketing. Get into some couple default browsers options too. The search results are pretty good. There's room to do it. Why not?
No doubt.
It's a good domain. It's simple. Chat.com. I love it.
It definitely is. I just think the functionality, like I said, in browser where you just immediately Google something, that's just such a tough thing to beat, where somebody then has to go to a site. I'm not saying it can't happen, but that's tough functionality.
That experience on Chrome, obviously when you're in your bar, the browser bar, that's a search engine bar. And we talked about this before. It wasn't always like that, right? You'd actually have to type in the website or type to google.com. So they need to find a partnership with a browser that would go to their results. Now, crazy idea. Who has a huge market base of browsers that does not have a search engine? Apple.
I was going to say, is it Safari?
Correct.
Yeah.
Why doesn't Apple have their own search engine? They've talked about it in the past. Possibly do they have their own crawler, etc., but they don't have their own kind of visual UI for it. So if they can partner up, and they're already going to partner up with them, I think, on some things on the Apple Intelligence stuff, I'm pretty sure.
On Siri, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Siri is going to be powered by ChatGPT.
So if all of a sudden we go to our Safari browsers and we search for something, instead of it being default Google, they default it in as chat.com. Why not? I don't think there's any other browsers out there that could have that kind of impact because they have an association with another search engine, like the Edge browser. That's connected to Bing by default. Mozilla has super small market share. Opera has a super small market share. They could maybe try. I think they are powered by DuckDuckGo or something like that. So that could be one of their plays, is that if they can get in the default of Apple as well, they do a couple of Super Bowl ads and just see if it sticks. Because I could see, the normal person using chat.com all of a sudden. I'm totally in for like a disruptor of the environment to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, definitely wouldn't be opposed to it. So curious to see how that pans out. But I think the only thing that might be a little tough there is the antitrust lawsuit with Google and how that was ruled. Like Google cannot pay Apple to be the default browser. And I think they were giving them like $20 billion a year to do it or something like that. So if that then got struck down, how can then Apple and OpenAI partner together? I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'd be curious to see how that rolls out.
And maybe there could be a play because of the changing of the guard of presidencies wise. Since the Google stuff went through already, they'll probably keep it there. Like, they'll probably go after it. I think I was reading something earlier. They're not 100% sure if Meta, they're going to go after Meta and try to break that up from like an Instagram and WhatsApp standpoint. I'm not sure how that administration is going to go after monopolies as much. So if they're a little bit more lenient, maybe this will slide through and it's their doorway in. To go after it. But I guess a question for you, how would you feel if Meta and Instagram were broken apart? And do they deserve to be broken apart?
I don't know, because I think they do probably have a pretty good case of like, there is some good diversity in social where TikTok's a whole separate company that's thriving. I mean, you can make the case for YouTube. It's not like a full social platform, but it like kind of is, especially now with shorts. Then you got like, I know Blue Sky has gotten a lot of buzz as of late. You got X and Twitter. Reddit continues to grow. Pinterest continues to grow. I think they might have a little better case of like, hey, we're not like, it's not a total monopoly in social. Whereas Google, like, you can kind of only point to Bing, really. And even then it's not that comparable. So I think they might have a slightly better case to be made of like, there is more diversity in that. But I don't know if the angle is going to be like, did it make because I think I read what you did as well. And I think it was more along the lines of like, did it actually help the consumer? So I don't know if like that would be tougher to make that case. But I do think, there is more options compared to search.
What do you feel? How do you feel about as a marketer, as a paid marketer, if they were separate? Could you imagine having two different logins to manage your ads?
I personally would love it because Meta ad platform is the worst thing ever. Literally the worst thing ever. So like we might luck out and Instagram just becomes easier to use as an ads platform, and Facebook, I don't know, maybe it gets a little bit better. But I don't know if that, I guess it would change, because you probably wouldn't have audience signals working with one another, where Meta ads are pretty powerful in the sense that like learnings on Facebook can be applied to Instagram and vice versa with your audience signals there. So there might be like a little hit in performance there. I don't know how to kind of measure that right now, but I would assume Facebook or Meta ads work really well because both of those platforms can work together.
Is there any stats on people that are active in Instagram, if they're also active in Facebook or vice versa?
I would assume so, yeah. Like the overlap rate there.
Yeah, what is it?
I don't know.
because I do think you are right that they do pick up a lot of signals between platforms and associations.
No doubt.
I guess you make the other picture, right? Like all of a sudden, let's say they acquired X and they have all those signals and they all know what user is on what, and then their friend group is with what friend group, and they have
Yeah,
that connection. So I actually had never really thought about it that much, that what makes it so powerful. So there could be a performance set, but I would love to have it separate, to be honest, just another level of what we can go after, because I do think that it's maybe not talked about enough, but the Instagram demographic versus the Facebook graphic is different. Yes, there is overlap, but it is different. And so you could, I mean, yes, when you run an ad, you can see the placement reports and see what's there, and you can kind of optimize what's there. But I don't know. I think it is rare that you would only just do Meta or just only do Facebook and only do an Instagram and segment the accounts like that. You typically throw them all together in placements, but I think it's
100%.
warranted maybe over time.
They also named WhatsApp in there. And I'd be curious, like, I mean, I haven't really done like WhatsApp advertising before. Like, this might sound bad, but like I don't even know if you can. I think you might. I think you can push to WhatsApp. I'm pretty sure you can. Like, you can push SMS to WhatsApp. You checking that?
You can do. You can create ads.
Like, you could push messages to WhatsApp via ad, right?
Apparently so.
Yeah, I thought so. But I was just thinking too, like, I mean, if you have Facebook, you have Instagram, and you have WhatsApp, like, I don't know what intel they get from WhatsApp, but dude, that's got to be a treasure trove of data. Pretty like scary to think that, like, your conversations in WhatsApp could help inform ad targeting. But I wouldn't put it past
I've never
the company.
used
That's a
WhatsApp
multi-billion-dollar operation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It'd be curious to see how like all this pans out here. But yeah, I would assume like performance hit would probably be impacted there. But the actual experience, I think anybody listening who's managed Facebook ads before, talking about like that Facebook ads manager, it is so atrocious. And I don't know, maybe that would force Instagram to like build its own ad platform and it would be easier to use. Anything would be better than Facebook ads manager. And they've just been such a dominant player in the game where like there's no real pressure on them to like improve that performance because the thing just prints money regardless of like what that experience looks like right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it is interesting too, because if they were separate, you have separate pixels, separate reporting, I mean, it's going to add a little bit more from a cost perspective, time as an agency person to do and set up and run.
For sure.
Which would be kind of interesting for us on how that works. How do we get down this rabbit hole?
We will say.
I forget.
Huh?
How do we get down this rabbit hole?
I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know. Did you want to mention about the 2024 core update rolling out?
Yeah.
Is there anything worth chatting about there?
We'll see. That's what I'll have to say to that. We're another update. We'll see once people report on a major impact. I haven't seen a lot of impact throughout our clients, for that. But algorithm updates these days, they happen all the time. I don't think it's as big as some of the other ones that have been in the past. It's just kind of a minor change. So, but it is definitely something that historically Google does shake stuff up before the holidays. But I don't think they shook it up as hard as they have done in previous years, where like they would dramatically impact people's search results before shopping comes into play. So, yeah, not too much to update on that side, on the SEO side, but we'll keep you posted if we do see something that does majorly impact.
Cool. I know we did an episode before, I think last year now, on preparing for Black Friday, and those sales, and then as you head into like the holiday season, we didn't really touch on that too much this year here, but if you're a marketer listening, this would, you're probably
too late.
You're too late at this point here. Like, this should have already been discussed with the client and ad assets and all that good stuff. So
yeah,
hopefully
I am
everybody out
gonna
there listening.
I do want to take a really close look this year on the data on the different types of promotions that we'll be running, and to see if there is really any science or impact between like only running your Black Friday, Cyber Monday during that time period, or just having a longer sales period that's the same throughout the whole holiday. Like, I would really want to see the impact of a campaign that is simpler. Like, let's say we start on mid-November, like the week before Thanksgiving, and we run it all the way till our last shipping date. And let's say it's 25% off site-wide. It's our 3-week sale. Have at it. And you can send constant messages and you have your assets out there. That's one style. I think it's becoming more popular, and I'm not sure is that because it's more effective or not, versus the, hey, okay, Black Friday, or okay, Cyber Monday's here. That's our first ad period. Then we go to Cyber Monday and it stops. Or maybe there's a trickle. And then you have another one that's for your December push. Maybe it's a different offer, or maybe the same offer, just different ad assets or something like that. But it's like too much of like stop and go, of not having the consistency. I wonder what would perform better, to be honest. I don't know if people are reacting the same to a Cyber Monday, Black Friday event rather than like, hey, it's sale time, and that's their expectation.
It's definitely tough to say. One thing that you just made me think of there, and I've given him a shout out before, Nick Bear. He's the founder of BPN, which is like a supplement company. And he produces a ton of great content, like a really good follow on YouTube. But BPN, their thing is like there's 2 deals per year. And it was this past week, or I think this past week for like 4-day period. And there's one other time of the year. And I think that's either like the New Year's sale or around Christmas time. But that's like their messaging is like, hey, we just do 2 sales a year and that's it. We don't ever discount our products, and it's just these 2 times a year. I think there's something powerful about that, where if you really do like a brand and you really are, a consistent purchaser, or just like to support a particular brand, I do think there's something to be said of like, hey, this is the only time in the year that there's a discount. I ended up buying product last night because I'm like, you know what? I consistently buy this like every 1, 2, 3 months. Why not take advantage of 20% off right now? I'm going to buy it anyway. So might as well just get it while it's discounted. And, he tweeted out some like results or put it on his Instagram story about, how successful the sale was. But I thought that was pretty powerful messaging of like, there's only this 1 time or 2 times of the year where you're going to get your sale. And if you could lead with that within your messaging to your audience, I think there's something there to generate some kind of sense of urgency.
I wonder if that strategy is better fit or mostly targeting a strong, loyal customer base.
For sure.
Versus like acquiring new clients.
Yep.
Because I could definitely see that. There's a couple brands like the supplement company Element that's like salt hydration. I consistently buy that. But if they had a period of time where it goes on sale, I would be a lot more motivated to buy it then.
Yeah, like you're definitely going to hop on
for sure. But doing it that way, does that acquire new customers as easier? Or maybe you're just really good at your marketing outside those periods of acquiring new customers. They get a taste, and this is more about nurturing the base and pushing it up. I think that's a very valid tactic, because otherwise, yeah, it's like you just don't know when things are going to go on sale, or you think things are going to go on sale, so you just kind of wait to buy. And that's the other thing too. I think some of these brands, if you put it out early, and you still have strong messaging. My point is to not de-emphasize your messaging via email or your ads, but just have the same damn promotion the whole time.
No doubt.
People know like clear expectations of what it is, because they're going to want to buy more. They're getting hit up by all sorts of things all the time. So stay in front of them. But I don't know about getting catchy about your promotions has that same motivational effect, because everybody's so saturated with ads right now.
For sure.
This time period. We're like adding a special discount for Cyber Monday for a couple days. Does that really boost your sales? I don't know. I'm going to look at the data if I have enough to tell.
Yeah, plus too, I know we talked about just general kind of state of the economy in previous episodes here. And I know a lot of, businesses and just having conversations, being in the line of work that we are, there has been just general layoffs this past year and companies becoming a bit more cost conscious. So be curious to see how this holiday season pans out. It has been a pretty consistent theme that like the consumer is strong in the United States. And, I know we're not adverse to credit cards in the country here and, put some things on credit. So I don't know. We will see if there is a dip in overall e-commerce performance here this year. But yeah, be curious to see how all of this pans out here.
Yep. It'll be an interesting kind of last quarter of how buying behavior is. It's not 100% clear if it's pent up or if they're going to push forward. But I do know that conversion rates will be going sky high in the next. Yeah, you should start to see an incremental increase from, I'd say, today until your last shipping day. Maybe it's a point a day.
I feel like this is probably like the first year with AI in the mix here and LLMs. So who knows if that's going to do anything at all? Maybe it won't. Maybe it will. But I could see, some people being like, hey, kind of map me out a plan. Here's my purchase behavior. Now, this is probably a little bit more like sophisticated where it's like, I don't know, here are my products that I like to buy. And here's what I'm kind of thinking this holiday season. Map me out like the best plan of attack based off of like company deals here of which sites I should support or which brands I should support and how to go about this process. Who knows if maybe that's like super niche thing to kind of call out there, but this is the first
AI shopper
where LLMs are like pretty broadly used. So I don't know, maybe that has an impact this year.
I think there'll be a big impact as far as people searching gifts for my son or person and getting ideas like gift ideas. And LLMs,
I would imagine.
I think that's going to be huge. So what shows up there, it'll be really interesting to see. I think that'll definitely have an impact.
Like I struggle to find cool ideas as a shopper. I got a kid, he's into this or she's into this, and help me figure that out. Could totally see that being a thing. But I think we probably, I don't know, maybe it might be a little bit early days for that here as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, cool. I know I got to jump to another call here in a minute, but I think we covered enough topics here. And yeah, I don't know. Hopefully at least like the start of the conversation was helpful for anybody listening as like an agency owner. I don't know. I think it's always helpful just to get perspective from other people on how you kind of handle, I don't know, tougher clients or tougher calls or, just in general on projects. It can be kind of stressful there. So I think it's always nice to kind of have a general reminder of like, you're not the only one who feels like that as a consultant there, and, take a step back and have perspective.
Yeah. Great way to end it.
Cool. Well, best of luck out there for all the e-com owners and agencies running Black Friday sales and Cyber Monday and all their holiday deals. This is a crazy time of the year, so best of luck, folks.
Yeah.